All right, so I show 3 o'clock. I think we have some people joining us live now. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dr. Kristy Mulkey, and I am the workshop coordinator with 240 Tutoring. And we've been seeing a lot of posts about people getting interviews and going to those interviews and wanting to know some tips and strategies or just what to expect in those interviews for teaching positions. So today we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to give you some tips and strategies you can use to be successful in your interview. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you so you can follow along. I have a few things typed up that I think some of you might want to save, so I think that will be helpful. Now, again, today we're talking about tips to help you get ready for your interview. So let's jump right in. Now, what's unique to our live video today is we're going to let you post questions in the comments. And at the end of this, I'm going to answer as many of those questions as I can. So as you watch this and you think of something that you want to know that I've not shared, or you want me to go into detail, or you have a specific circumstance you want to ask about, drop those right in the comments. We're watching those, and I will come to them at the end and answer as many of those as we can. So questions in the comments. We want to hear from you. Now, let's talk about what an interview looks like. Now, most interviews are going to be broken into 3 components. And that first component, that structure, is going to be introductions and icebreakers. So there's going to be a moment for you to introduce yourself and do some ice-breaking things. They'll introduce themselves, perhaps. Maybe you'll meet the team of people, but that's going to be the first part of the interview. The second part, and probably the part you're most interested in, are the questions for you, and we're going to dive into that and what that might look like. And the third component would be the closing and any questions you have for them. So let's get into this just a little bit more specifically. So that's section 1. The first thing that you're probably going to be asked is to tell a little bit about yourself. So you're probably going to walk in, there's going to be some greetings, shake hands, smile. If we're still in this pandemic, maybe you don't shake hands, but you smile, and be prepared for a little bit of small talk. After everybody kind of settles in, they're going to ask you that first question, and most likely it is going to be, take 2 minutes, take a minute, and tell us about yourself. Now, here is where most new to the profession people mess up right off the bat in the interview, is you want to practice this. This is so easy for you to lose track of time and to ramble and go on and on and on and not realize how long you've talked. So I want you to practice this. Set a little stopwatch on your phone and practice this. Have some bulleted points written out that you want to talk about this. So plan and practice it. Record yourself maybe. See how that's coming across and how long it's taking you. Now, I want you to blend this introduction. So if we were to take this 2-minute introduction, I want about 1/3 of it to be about you personally and about 2/3 of it to be about you professionally. So that 1/3 personal, tell about where you're from. Of course, say your name for anybody who hasn't seen that on a piece of paper in front of them in the committee. And talk about your personal life. You don't have to get into great detail. Where you're from, where you currently live, those basic things. You can tell about your family if you want to. You don't have to. You do not have to reveal your age, but maybe where you went to school or those kinds of things. The bulk of this introduction, though, should be professional. So maybe tell about your work experience. Think about those things on your resume and summarize it pretty quickly. Focus on teaching things. Now, I know you might have been drum major of the band in high school or captain of the football team. Those are important things when you're in high school. Don't share that in the interview. I know that's a mistake a lot of our younger candidates make. And so think about times, jobs you've had where you've interacted with young people. So if you've coached a little league team, if you have worked in a church or volunteer organization, or you've babysat, or you've worked in a daycare, or anything, even if you've watched your own younger siblings. So if you don't have actual teaching experience, talk about that. If you have teaching experience, talk about that. What grades have you taught? Where was that? For how long? If you had any unique successes, you can bring that up right there. But this should be geared mostly to your professional. Practice this. I can't emphasize that enough. You don't want to bore them and ramble right out of the gate. Second thing that's probably going to happen is you're going to get one of these two. Maybe not both of them. It's possible to get both of them, but you'll probably get one or the other. So you could get a why question. Why do you want to be a teacher? They're just trying to get to know you a little bit. You may have already answered this on an application. Why do you want to work at this school? Why do you want to teach this grade? Why do you want to teach this subject? Be prepared to answer that question. Be succinct. Don't ramble. Be honest as to why you want to teach there. If that's a great school district for your children, maybe you've lived there all your life. Answer that honestly and concisely. Don't ramble. Or you could get this question, strengths and weaknesses. I've seen so many people bomb this question. So plan this one as well. You want more strengths than weaknesses. I hope that's obvious as to why, but you want more strengths than weaknesses. So maybe 2 or 3 strengths and 1 or 2 weaknesses. Balance that. Figure those out. Talk about those strengths and give an example. Don't just say I'm organized. Say I'm organized. I like to keep everything in a digital planner and I color code that so that I can make sure I'm not missing anything that I need to do. Give an example of how that strength is a strength for yours. As much as you can tie that into education, the better. On the weaknesses, you want to, I hate to say it, but bring this back as to why it's not as much of a weakness. So I want you to think about when you say, okay, maybe I tend to run late. That's a catchy, that's a tricky weakness, but they're going to know right off the bat after a month on the job if that is a weakness of yours. I want you to think about, this has been a tendency in my past, but here's what I've done to work on that, compensate for it. So I set multiple alarms. I tell myself I have to be there earlier than I actually have to. So go ahead, when you name that 1 or 2 weaknesses, talk about your plan to intervene on those or to compensate for those, how you're working on it. Don't just go, I'm usually late, and then stop. Oh goodness, that doesn't land well to your audience. So really think about how you want to talk about it. Next, that's section 2. This is where most of you are really curious. What should I anticipate here? These are going to be your questions about teaching. Now I want to talk about how those are designed first. Most of those questions are going to come in the form of a scenario. This is scary, but it's really essential because what they're looking for is, can you apply what you've learned or what you know into the context of a school or a classroom setting? So not just you know an answer, but you know how to apply that in a scenario or situation. So I want you to try these things because scenario questions can totally throw you for a loop. First, listen carefully. They're usually long. Look out for some key words. Jot those down. Take a nice, a pretty, or a professional looking notebook or tablet, clean, and you can jot down the key words in that scenario. Focus on the question. So they're going to give you this big, long scenario, and then at the end, there's going to be a question. The question is key. You can get hung up on a component of that scenario and not actually answer the question. So be sure you focus on the question and don't ramble. Answer that question. They're looking for that application. So they're looking for you to give them what you know in that context. It's not a bad thing to ask them to repeat the last part. So if they give you this big old long scenario and then the question, you can ask them to repeat that. Don't make them reread the whole thing, but ask them just to repeat that last part, the question, so you can make sure. They're looking for specificity and examples in your answers. So when you're answering these questions, all your interview questions, don't be generic. Don't be generic. It screams, I'm a new teacher or I'm a young teacher, which is really not good if you're not a new teacher or a young teacher. But if you are, don't give generic, what I would call fluffy responses that really don't have any meat to them. Be specific. Give examples. This is what I've seen. This is what I've done. Be specific. Another caution. Base your answers on your experiences and your observations. A lot of young teachers who've just come out of that intern year or that preliminary year, maybe if they're alternative certification and who've been working with a mentor, they'll reference that mentor teacher. Those coming out of a traditional program will often reference their cooperating teacher. That's great, but we're not hiring your mentor teacher or your cooperating teacher. We're hiring you. So you need to base these answers on you, what you've done, what you've seen. Now, don't lie or exaggerate, but it needs to be as based on you as possible. So now let's talk about the actual questions you may get. So in that section, now we've already said they're going to be scenarios. They're looking for specificity, examples, and what you've seen and done. That is going to occur with these questions. Most likely, you're going to get a question out of each of these categories, or at least 3 out of the 4. So let's talk about this first category, content. This is the one that if we were going to do 3 out of the 4, probably might not happen. I can almost guarantee that you're going to get a question here and here and here. Can almost guarantee that. But let's talk about this first one, content. This is going to be specific to what you are teaching or what you're going to be teaching, what you're interviewing for. They might ask you about the curriculum or the standards. So if your district follows state standards or if they're following national standards, you need to be familiar with those. Be familiar with them. So if your state's following Common Core and they ask you about Common Core, you don't want to just sit there and be like, I don't know what Common Core is. It's not a good thing. So you need to be prepared to answer that question. They may ask you about curriculum. What do you know about math curriculum? Have you ever worked with a specific math curriculum? Be prepared to answer that. I'll give you an example. A very common question for those of you interviewing for elementary positions is about balanced literacy. If you don't know anything about balanced literacy and you are interviewing for an elementary position that's self-contained, teaches all subjects, or teaches ELA, you need to learn something about balanced literacy. That's a very common content question for our elementary candidates. Now, the second question, remember these last 3 categories, I can almost guarantee you'll get a question, is pedagogical. This is looking at how do we teach. So those best practices for teaching your subject or grade. If you don't know that, always revert back to student-centered. We want our answers to be student-centered. That means students are engaged, students are participating. It's not teacher is lecturing, students are taking notes. This often will hang up our middle school and high school teachers. They'll get a question about, say you're trying to teach the standard, and they'll give you the standard, this content. How would you best develop a lesson to deliver this content to your students? And if you say, well, I'm going to make this great PowerPoint and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to read it and they're going to take notes in a folder, it's not the answer they're looking for. I'm sorry, it's just not. So you need to think about those best practices for pedagogy, how we teach. You might get a question that leans toward differentiation. So how do we meet students' needs individually? Please know that differentiation does not always mean I'm writing a separate lesson plan for every student. In fact, that's what it rarely means. It's little things you're doing to meet students' needs through questioning, through adjusting your instruction, how you set up your groups. Those kinds of things are differentiation. Diversity, how do you respond to diverse groups in your instruction? Or special populations, ESL, our English language learners, our special education population, our gifted and talented population, our 504 population. Any of those could fall under this pedagogy question. This is typically the most difficult question. Answer it as best you can. Don't ramble and just keep trying to add. Answer it as best you can. Stop, let them move on to the next question. Okay? The next one, classroom management. Can almost guarantee this, because here's what I used to say as an administrator. I can teach you how to teach. I can teach you these two things over here. I can teach you how to teach, and I can teach you your content. This is much harder to teach. Much, much harder. So they want to know, what do you know about classroom management? So we're looking at that environment, your management plan, your procedures, and how you deal with challenging behaviors or those difficult behaviors that might appear. So remember, when we talk about environment, we want it to be student-centered, warm, friendly, where students feel free to take risk and ask questions. When we're talking about a management plan, you're going to have rules and consequences and rewards and a system for how you're going to communicate that to students and parents so that they know what's expected. And procedures, how are you going to teach procedures for how students are going to do things? We want both those things, that management plan and those procedures, to land or to lend themselves to students being able to self-manage eventually. So if we have a good plan in place and we've taught procedures, those students can self-manage and regulate. They know where to get things. They don't need you to hand them everything. And then dealing with challenging behaviors. Remember, on these things, we want it to be positive. If you can bring up things like positive behavior supports. If you don't know what those are, you can Google it. It's out there for you to read. And individualizing it for those students who truly have unique needs when it comes to behavior. Relational. This is your last type of question you may get. Those relational questions. Now, those are going to be geared at communication and interaction. So how are you going to communicate and interact with parents? What's that look like? It's almost always going to come in the form of a scenario, and they're usually not easy scenarios. So a parent comes to you and they're upset that their child has a C and is normally an A student, and they want to know why. How do you address that parent? How do you effectively communicate with them? That type of question. Interactions with teammates and administrators. They want to know, how are you going to work with the group? Remember, always positive, always a team player, those kinds of things. Now, if you're not naturally a team player, you have to work on that, because that is essential in education. And then lastly, do you have a personal growth mindset? Can you take criticism? Are you willing to grow and learn as a teacher? Are you teachable? Are you coachable? No one is the perfect teacher. Hear me on that. No one. I don't care how long you've been teaching. No one's perfect. They want to know, are you coachable? Can I grow you? Can I help you get better? That's what a principal's listening for. Now, section 3. I hope y'all are dropping some comments in so we can answer those, some questions in those comments. Section 3, that closing. This is going to come at the end. They're going to ask you, now, do you have any questions for us? The answer is always yes. Have them pre-written in your little tablet that you brought, okay? You need 1 or 2 thoughtful questions. Otherwise, it makes you seem like you didn't plan or you're uninterested. You need to have 1 or 2 thoughtful questions. Let me give you some ideas. Do y'all have a campus discipline plan that you follow? Do y'all plan in teams? Do you have a common planning time? What curriculum do you use? Do teachers develop the curriculum? Is it something purchased? What's the method of teacher evaluation? How are we evaluated as teachers? Do y'all use a standardized system from the state, or do you have your own? Here's another great question. So when you're looking for that second question, here you go, because you want to know this one. If you don't ask this question, you're going to kick yourself when you get out to the car or when you get home later. Always ask this. What's the time frame for the decision? Do you have a time frame for when you will be hiring? So that lets you know, am I waiting 1 day? Am I waiting 3 days? Am I waiting a week? They may tell you, we have interviews scheduled for the next 2 weeks. That'll give you some peace of mind when you don't get a phone call or anything in 2 or 3 days. So ask about that time frame and add this tag on the end. Will you let me know regardless if I get the position or not? Some principals will call just the person they're offering, and they never call the no's. Some will call both. They'll let the no's know. That was a weird sentence, but they'll let you know if you didn't get the position, and they'll call the person they're going to offer. I just threw my pen. I got so excited. The person they're going to offer the position to. So always ask that. That's a great question. As a former administrator, trust me, I knew when somebody asked that, I'm like, they're prepared. They want this job. They want to know, am I going to get it or not? Now, what not to ask? What not to ask? How much does it pay? Don't ask about money. What's the insurance like? Don't ask about this. This makes you seem focused on the wrong things. It makes you seem like you just want someone to, you're looking for a job, not to be impactful to students. And so don't ask about this. Now you might be thinking, but I need to know. You ask these questions when they call and offer you the position. So when the administrator calls and says, hey, I would love to offer you this position. You did a great job in the interview. You can say, oh, I'm so excited. Thank you. May I ask you a few questions? And that's when you can ask those things. Don't feel like you have to say yes as soon as they say, we'd like to offer you this position. On your way out, express gratitude and seem excited, all right? Even if you're not, you might be sitting through this interview and be thinking, I don't know if I want to work on this team. I don't know if I want this position. That's okay, because you never know. If you seem disinterested, they may not interview you for another position you would want. So always express gratitude and excitement. Shake their hands if we're able to, and smile and appear grateful. Now, last few tips I want to give you. Remember, dress professional. If in doubt, dress better than you think you need to. Now, most likely you don't have to go in a full suit, but guys, shirt and tie for sure, at least a button up. Ladies, nice blouse, maybe a jacket. You don't have to wear a dress. Make sure it's professional and appropriate. Be sure you're well groomed. Look at your nails. Look at your facial hair if you're a male candidate. Make sure you look like you tried to get ready. Young ladies, don't go with a messy bun. I know it's trendy, but don't do that. You need to look professional. Do your homework. Know something about the campus or the district. Know the demographic of the student and the teachers, their ratings, their scores, curriculum, their mission statement, initiatives. Guys, almost all of that you can find on the school website. Go look. Ask anyone you know who works there. Ask them about the school so that will help you frame your answers. Be early. Be early. I have, as an administrator, turned away a candidate who was 10 minutes late for their interview and couldn't give me a good reason why. It wasn't their car broke down. It wasn't anything. She just said, I didn't plan well enough. We didn't interview her. So be early. Allow time for traffic. Allow time for contingencies. Be confident. Now that you know kind of what to expect, be confident. Watch your nonverbals. As you can see, I struggle with talking with my hands. If I'm in an interview, sometimes I'll wrap them together and put them in my lap. Watch your face as they're talking to you. Be sure you're smiling, nodding. Watch those nonverbals. Don't sound like a textbook. Don't sound like a textbook, okay? And then finally, send a thank you. This can come in the form of an email or a handwritten card. Even if you don't get offered the position, y'all, this goes a long way. Send a thank you. Send a thank you. So now let's dive into some questions. We've got a few coming in. So we have one from Sarah. Is a portfolio always necessary to bring? That is a great question. Look at the posting, and then when they call and set up the interview, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. It actually just shows you're thoughtful and prepared. Ask, should I bring a professional portfolio with me? And they may say yes, and they may say no. A lot of school districts will say, can you send us a link to a digital portfolio? So if you have something like that set up in Google Drive or something to that effect, you absolutely can. But I would ask that question. If in doubt, bring it. I always carry a couple of extra copies of my resume and then some samples of things I've done. lesson plans, activities I've written, assessments I've written, things I've actually done. If that's organized in a portfolio, even better, bring it. If nobody looks at it, it hadn't hurt anything, but you'll have it if they say, we would like to see it. So that's a great question. All right, we have another question from Lisa. Any tips for the cover letter? Ooh, that's a good question too. Cover letter. First of all, make it specific to that job. Make it specific to that job. As someone who's seen lots of resumes and lots of cover letters, you can spot the generic ones a mile away. Now, I know you're thinking, I'm applying for 15 jobs. It still needs to be specific to that, at least that school district or that campus. Another thing, keep it fairly short. We don't want to see your resume in paragraph form. That cover letter should draw us in and give us something that the resume doesn't. All right. It can highlight a few things from the resume, but it shouldn't be a regurgitation of everything that's on your resume. Keep it fairly short. I'm talking short intro paragraph, concise but meaty body paragraph, closing paragraph. That's it. Keep it short. Keep it short. They're not going to read a long one. I'm just going to tell you, they're not going to read a long cover letter. So don't antagonize over it. Have someone who's really good with grammar, spelling, all of that, proof it. Have a couple of people proofread it for you. An error in that cover letter sometimes means you won't get an interview. Sometimes means you won't get an interview. So great question. We have another question from Danielle. What are the must-haves that you bring with you to your interview? Must-have. Something to write on. Something to write on. So if they ask you one of those long questions, you can make some notes. The other, 1 or 2 questions already written out that you want to ask at the end. That's a must-have. Another, I'd say must not. Let's talk about what not to bring. Leave your phone in the car. Leave your phone in the car, because it vibrating or anything, or turn it off in your purse or pocket, gentlemen. Leave your phone in the car. Don't bring that. If they want to see digital work, then you could bring a laptop that you could pull out. But if they didn't ask for that, then I wouldn't bring that with you. I like to bring, like I said earlier, a couple of extra copies of the resume, maybe with that cover letter attached. Letters of recommendation, that one is a little bit tricky. As someone who's written a lot of letters of recommendation, they start to sound generic after a little while. If you have a standout letter, like somebody wrote you a reference letter that really highlights who you are as unique, bring some extra copies of that. List of references, if that's not on your resume, it should be the last part of your resume, but if it's on a separate sheet, please bring that. Almost every administrator will be required by their district to check references. Please put at least one reference who's seen you teach. Don't put your college cheer coach and your manager from HEB that you worked for. They want to see people who know how you teach or how you interact with children. So if you don't have any teaching experience and you've done any work with kids, list those references first. If you had a mentor during your intern year, or if you're a cooperating teacher during your clinical teaching or student teaching, put those on your references. Professors are good, teachers are good, but they probably haven't seen you teach children. So that would be my advice on the must-haves to bring. You don't need to bring a ton of stuff. I once had someone bring in a rolling cart with all the centers they had ever made. You don't need that. We didn't look at it. And so that would be my list of must-haves. Not seeing any other questions. If you have any questions after we end this, you are free to post those in the comments. We do watch those and we will get back with you. So if you're watching this later, after the live, feel free to continue to put in questions, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can. I hope this has been helpful and that you now feel a little bit more confident. You can go back and look through those things. Guys, you can Google common questions for a teacher interview, and you will find tons of example questions that you can use. But remember, be educated, be prepared, know something about the school. Now, lastly, of course, we wish you all the best. You can follow us on all of our social media. So we're on Facebook. We have Facebook specific groups for several different types of tests, so you can find those. We have a YouTube channel with all the videos that we have. And we're also on Instagram. So if you are an Instagram person, please go check us out on Instagram. If you want, again, have questions, put them in the comments, or you can email us at workshops@240tutoring.com. And I want to highlight this for you. This link right here, and I will put this in the comments after this video. I want you to go visit this page right here. We have a ton of sample questions and some tips on how to best answer those sample questions. So if you want to see more samples of the types of questions I talked about in this video, go to this link. There'll be lots of sample questions you can take a look at. Now, since we don't have any other questions, I am going to go ahead and sign off. I hope you found this helpful, and I wish you all the best on your upcoming interview. Again, I'm Dr. Kristy Mulkey, the workshop coordinator with 240 Tutoring. Thank you so much.